別部屋ってなんだよ。じゃあわざわざシャノンとジョージ兄さんは別の部屋に泊まったのかよ。
はい。そんなにもおかしかったでしょうか。
Jessica's cheeks had been stuffed with a chocolate-coated chinsuko biscuit that Shannon had brought as a present from Okinawa. It all came flying out at Shannon when Jessica cried out.
シャノンさ、何のために沖縄まで旅行に行ったんだよ。それもジョージ兄さんと二人っきりで。
それはとても大きな水族館が沖縄にあるからぜひ行こうって誘われて、私お魚とか好きですし。
いやだからさ、健全な男女がお泊まりありで旅行に行ったわけだろ。
Jessica, were you expecting them to do the sex?
それでチューもなければギューもないのかよ。
Jessica, why?
ましてや部屋は男女で別部屋ってなんだよ。
Are you trying to live vicariously through Shannon's love life? What is this?
チューについてはノーコメントです。でもギューはありましたよ。ジョージさんの胸温かかったです。
そういうことじゃねえぜ。なあもう、なんだってこんなカップルがいるんだよ。なあもう、じれってえぜ。
From Shannon's point of view, it was an incredibly happy trip for various reasons, but it looked like Jessica had found their pace to be pretty irritating. For a while, Jessica chewed at her present, complaining about romance and pretending to faint in agony on her bed. Shannon and George had chosen to go to Okinawa because there was a huge aquarium there. They did this because an aquarium had given them the opportunity to start going out. Since their relationship had started at an aquarium, having their first overnight trip to be in an aquarium must have been some commemorative value.
そんな記念の節目の初のお泊まり旅行ならいろいろと進展するもんがあるはずだぜ。それが男女別部屋、カップルでシングルを2部屋。ああもう本当にどうかしてるぜ。
Jessica, what's wrong with you?
それはお互い独身の男女ですし、ジョージさんがそこをしっかりするのが男女のマナーだとおっしゃって。
だからそれを踏み越えるためのお泊まり旅行じゃねえのかよ。もはやキューとかギューとかのレベルじゃねえぜ。
お嬢様がどういう意味でおっしゃってるのかわかりませんが、ジョージ様は最後まで本当に紳士でいてくださいました。それは私もそういうことがあるかなというか。でも私たちお付き合いはしてますけど、別に結婚してるわけじゃないし、お嬢様が期待されているようなことはちゃんと神様の前で誓いを立ててからするべきです。するべきです。
Shannon's face got bright red. She made a circle with both hands and relentlessly intertwining, separating, and making heart marks with them. Apparently, the dramatic progress Jessica had looked for hadn't happened, but it seemed to have a very important experience for Shannon in her own way. In the end, whether Jessica was jealous of Shannon or made fun of her, it didn't change the fact Shannon had a huge lead on her.
私も彼氏欲しい。シャノンに先を越されたのが悔しい。彼氏作るときは一緒だぜって約束したのに抜け駆けされた。
お嬢様は素敵な方ですから、私なんかよりきっと素敵な方がすぐに現れます。
そういう慰めはいらねえぜ。シャロンの裏切り者、出ていけ。うぜえ。
Jessica threw several cushions at her, but midway she had an asthma attack and started to choke pretty badly. Shannon hurried over to a nearby table and started searching around on top of it. A cute basket was placed there, and inside it was Jessica's bronchodilator. Shannon picked it up and handed it over to Jessica. Jessica's asthma attacks always came suddenly. Because of that, she always needed to carry this medicine around. She breathed the medicine in and after a while managed to overcome her choking as her asthma finally settled down. Shannon thought this was a good chance to leave and tried to exit the room before bowing courteously. As she did, one more small cushion came flying and hit Shannon on the head. She noticed Jessica was on the verge of crying. Half of her face was buried in her last and favourite cushion. That face was red and meek.
お嬢様？
シャノンさ、正直に言って、私、髪型とか、変かな。
まさか。お嬢様の髪はとてもお美しいと思います。
じゃあ、目とか変かな。鼻とか変じゃないかな。やっぱり喋り方がダメなのかな。だから彼氏できないのかな。
そんなはずはありませんよ。お嬢様はそのままで十分に素敵です。そしてその魅力はこれからもっともっと増していくと思いますよ。
でも私だけ彼氏できない。サクもヒナも彼氏できたのに私にだけできないよ。やっぱり私には魅力ないからかな。みんなね、文化祭に彼氏連れてくるんだって。私もその日までにはきっと彼氏いるって思って大見え切って、彼氏だってできやしない。私だけ。
Before she realised it, Jessica was shedding huge tears. Jessica didn't really feel like crying, and of course she felt like supporting Shannon's progress in love as a friend. However, as she had cheered Shannon on, her true feelings had suddenly gotten mixed in, and she couldn't help but shed tears. Shannon understood Jessica's innocent and easily injured heart. The rough style of speech Jessica usually had was all just an attempt to protect that fragile heart. As a daughter and successor of the Ushiramaya family, and as a girl isolated on Rokkenjima, the only person she could expose her true feelings to was Shannon. Shannon understood that, so she strongly regretted acting smug, even if it was only a little.
涙出ちゃうなんて私変だぜ。ごめん。
お嬢様は素敵な方です。そんなお嬢様に素敵な男性が現れないわけがありません。
シャノン、もう時間だろ。早く行かないとまたゲンジさんや母さんに怒られるぜ。私は全然平気だから早く行きなよ。悪いな、泣いちゃったりなんかしてさ。バカみてえだぜ、私。
Jessica faced away, acting as though she didn't really want to trouble Shannon. Waving her hand as though chasing Shannon away, Shannon took the sign that Jessica didn't want to be bothered anymore, bowed her head and left the room. When Shannon's footsteps disappeared into the distance, Jessica lay down on her bed, still hugging a cushion. Is it morning already? Why is the light outside? Her expression was still a little meek with tears in her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she had a very, very quiet and honest conversation with her heart.
私も恋がしたい。
It's a bit hard to balance the sound effects with the voice acting at moments like that. But as Shannon happily watered the flower beds in the garden, she sensed someone's presence. She turned around, thinking it was one of the family had come to visit. She must greet them. But what she saw was that witch.
ベアトリーチェ様。
久しぶりよの。どうだ？その後、そなたの思い人との仲は順調か？
As Beatrice sat on the rose arch, she happily blew on her pipe. Sitting in a place like that would crush the roses, and it might have been dangerous if the ark fell over, but it was a witch after all. Showing concern for her safety was probably a waste of time.
はい。おかげさまで順調です。
当然よ。わらわの魔法はてきめんである。そなたにはまるで、二人が出会うのはあらかじめ決められた運命であったかのように感じているかもしれぬ。だがそれは間違いよ。夢、運命だなどと思うでないぞ。
それは分かってます。
The witch was calling attention to something. Two things, actually. First, that Shannon's relationship with George was a fate that would be absolutely impossible under normal circumstances. Second, the power of a witch is great enough to overturn that fact. Shannon had just gotten wrapped up in those sweet days and had started believing the illusion that all fate revolved around her. But she remembered the witch's words. Originally, her relationship with George would have been impossible. So, no, it might have been impossible in the future as well.
すまぬ。医者と同じよ。病に悩めばすがるくせに、治れば感謝も忘れる。魔女が感謝された試しはないのでな。つい卑屈になってしまった。許すがいい。
感謝の気持ちを忘れたことはありません。ベアトリーチェ様のお力で幸せな思いができていること。そして、そのお力がなければ、私とジョージ様が寄り添う運命がなかったこと。決して忘れたことはありません。
すまぬ。いじめに来たわけではないのにな。口が悪いのはわらわが性分。許されよ。それより、聞いたぞ。二人きりで旅行に行ったとな。さぞや楽しかったであろう。
はい。
Why are you here, Beatrice?
とても楽しかったです。
Shannon's face suddenly lit up. The witch laughed lightly, and as though amused by the speed of that transformation.
もはやそなたの思い人は一方的に思うだけの存在ではない。互いに思われる恋人同士よ。愛に満たされた二人にとって世界はただそれだけで成立する。素晴らしき理想の世界かな。魔女も焼こうというもの。
Beatrice laughed pleasantly. That smile made her look like she'd blessed the lovers' rendezvous from the bottom of her heart without a trace of malice. After that day, Beatrice had shown herself to Shannon every once in a while. Even now, Shannon thought of her as an unsettling being. However, she was also indebted to of a person for magic that led her to the current relationship with George. So Shannon tried with all her might not to act surprised or scared.
そうだった。ベアトリーチェ様、旅行のお土産にお菓子を買ってきたんです。よかったらベアトリーチェ様もいかがでしょうか。
ほう、魔女に土産とな。
It seemed like even a witch who boasted of living for 1,000 years hadn't imagined that she'd receive a souvenir from a sweet lover's trip. When she saw that surprised expression, Shannon thought of this as a witch as a friend for the first time.
ほほう、ラードと小麦粉で作った東洋クッキーか。それを西洋風にチョコで包むとは、まさに和洋折衷、菓子のシルクロードよの。何がおかしい？
失礼いたしました。
This witch, who surely had a terrifying power, was chomping down on the sweets one after another, making a sound like a squirrel stuffing walnuts into its mouth. After a while, Shannon couldn't conceal her laughter.
しそうになったぞ。そなたには今度、ネロのドルチェビータでも振る舞おうぞ。バラは永遠の愛の象徴。今のそなたには、バラのドルチェこそがふさわしかろう。
The witch was in a great mood, fully enjoying modern candy.
これ、本当にありがとうございました。もう私には十分だと思いますので、お返しします。
The thing Shannon had softly set on the table was the gold-coloured butterfly brooch.
返さずともよい。それに、持ち続けていれば、二人の仲はこれからも永劫に盤石であろうが。
出会いのきっかけは、確かに魔法の力で与えてもらったかもしれません。でも、その出会いを永遠のものにする努力は、二人で協力し合って続けていくものだと思います。
愛もバラと同じか。過ぎた世日は根を腐らせる。苦労せねば育めぬ花もあろう。ならば好きにするがよい。身につけず宝石箱の中にしまうもよかろう。それはそなたに送ったわらわの行為だ。それを返されてはわらわも愉快ではない。
申し訳ございません。そういう意味で言ったわけじゃ。
気を害してなどおらぬ。そのブローチはすでにそなたのもの。わらわとの友情の証にせいぜい大事にしてくれれば少しは気も慰む。持ち続け、そのご利益を得るもよし、宝石箱にしまい込むもよし、望むなら恋路に悩む別のものに譲ろうと。ただ大事にしてくれればよい。さすがに粗末にされては心が痛むでな。
According to Beatrice, she had appeared several times in the past in response to person summons, to give them some tool imbued with magic power. However, when most people used that power to resolve their worries, they quickly grew unsettled by it, forgot their former gratitude, and threw away their tools they had been given with disgust.
だからわらわの行為に素直に感謝された試しは多くない。いや、初めてか。
The witch laughed heartily, but it looked like a sad laugh in Shannon's eyes. She herself had been like that in the past. No, maybe she was still like that now. Beatrice was definitely a witch with a strange and terrifying power. Most people probably wouldn't want to stick around her if they could help it. Surely, even those who had relied on that strange power sometimes felt fear rather than gratitude as a result. It must have been deeply hurt the witch to have had that happen over and over. Since the time she had started thinking of that way, Shannon had stopped trying to be frightened by Beatrice. This was surely something that had tormented the witch for over 1,000 years. Maybe she really liked those sweets. Beatrice, who normally spoke abusively, praised the black tea that Shannon served her and looked to be in remarkably high spirits. After doing that for a while, the witch gave the servant, and the servant grew animated in their discussion of the trip with George. The things Shannon actually knew about Beatrice was surprisingly few. First, she was a ghost-like being who appeared in unexpected places at unexpected times. It seemed that not everyone could perceive that she was there. Apparently, everyone had something called a wavelength, and the ability to perceive which varies greatly among different people. Only Shannon and Canon could interact with her to exchange words like this. There were few people who could actually sense her presence, but most people couldn't even feel that much. From what Beatrice said, Kraus and his wife had in particular zero magical talent, and no matter how much he followed them around, they would never notice her. Once earlier, when Shannon messed up and Natsui got really mad at her, Beatrice started playing around, hitting Natsui on the head with a pipe. I see, Natsui really doesn't notice a thing. But Shannon, watching that, had to burst out laughing without thinking and got scolded even more.
なら、親方様だったらどうでしょうか。魔法の研究とかをなさっているそうですし、きっとベアトリーチェ様のお姿にも気づいてくださると思います。
金蔵も同じよ。あれにも気の毒なくらいに魔法の才能がない。血だな。同情に値するほど才能がない。
As soon as they started talking about Kinzo, it felt like the atmosphere around Beatrice changed. She had spoken about Kraus and the rest's lack of magical talent as though she looked down on them, but she spoke to Kinzo in a different way. Anyone connected to the Ushiyama family would know about Kinzo's legend of the gold. According to that, Kinzo was given the gold after summoning the witch Beatrice. In other words, she must have had some kind of relationship with Kinzo.
だからあれは才能のひとかけらもないくせに至ったのだ。狂ったように独学を重ね、魔術師の域にまで達した。
それはとてもすごいことなんですね。
The witch, who usually looked down on people, was uncharacteristically offering her praise. While she lambasted him for saying that he had no talent, she praised his efforts.
そして親方様は魔法の力でベアトリーチェ様を呼び出した。
まあ召喚に応えたのは気まぐれだ。魔法を否定して久しいこのご時世に才能のかけらもない者が必死にやっているのでな。少しからかってやろうと思ったのがわらわの運の尽きよ。
Her choice of words highlighted how much of a disaster this had been for her. Shannon hesitated over whether it would be safe to continue this discussion, but Beatrice continued on her own, ignoring Shannon.
一応書式もルールも揃っていた。いくつかの作法が混在していたが、まあその熱意に免じ寛大に契約に応じてやったのだ。そしてわらわは山なす黄金を与えてやった。
そして親方様はその黄金を使って事業を成功させ、今日の財をなすのですね。
魔法の才能はからっきしだが、商才と莫才はあったようだな。いや、理不尽なる賭けに全て落とす勇気と狂気ゆえにか。狂気は時に魔力に通ずる。なるほど。 その点から見れば、金蔵に魔法の才能が全くなかったとは言い切れんか。
Shannon felt like she was daydreaming. While everyone in the Ushirmaya family knew of the story of how Kinzo idolized black magic, summoned a witch and received the gold, in actuality it was all rambling that nobody believed in. And now Shannon was having the story confirmed by the witch herself. She felt a little flustered by this incredible secret that only she knew.
そして、莫大な財産を得た金蔵は、人の世で手に入れることのできるすべての夢を叶えきった。そして、最後に世界の真理を求めたのだ。
世界の真理？
世界を構成する人の世で得られるすべてを満たした金蔵は、人が求める最後の欲望としてそれを欲したのだ。
The single element. She seemed to remember the witch using that word before. When Beatrice saw Shannon trying to remember what it was, she laughed bitterly, waving her hand, saying there was no need to worry.
わらわも金蔵を少し見くびっていた。まさかあれほどの力を見せるとは思わなかったのでな。おかげでこのざまだ。茶飲み友達もなく、この島にもう何十年も縫い止められている。誰に話しかけようとも声は届かず、どこへ行くこともできない。なんとも退屈な数十年だったことよ。
As she laughed in self-derision, she tapped her teacup with her finger. It made a light sound of pottery. Shannon didn't know whether the word self-derision was really an accurate expression to describe the look on the witch's face. Shannon didn't understand everything, but she could more or less figure out the situation. And it was probably a topic that she couldn't press the witch on easily, not unless the witch started talking about it herself. To sum everything up, she had said up until now, Beatrice, who had been summoned by Kinzo's magic, could not leave the island for some reason. And she had lost her power and her form, living her days in boredom. During that time, her words reached Shannon, who never forgot to show sincere respect for the witch. And Shannon had helped the witch regain her power, if only a little bit. As a result, it was now possible for the witch to drink tea with Shannon like this.
ベアトリーチ様が私に割るように言ったあの鏡は一体何なのですか？
ああ、その話か。この辺りの島で大昔いろいろとあったらしくてな。そのせいで良くないものがたまり、悪い歪みを引き寄せていたのだ。それを旅の東洋魔術師か何かが鎮魂の社を建立して封じ込めたらしい。それ自体はわらわとはどうでもいいことなのだが、困ったことに魔力の基礎が違っててな。わらわの魔力にも強い干渉を及ぼしておって、非常に迷惑していたのだ。
そうだったんですか。私はてっきりベアトリーチ様を封じていたものだとばかり。
わらわを対象にしたものではない。だが神格のある鏡だったからな。結果としてわらわの力を封じ込めていたわけだ。料理に例えるならこうか。わらわの注文した西洋料理が厨房でまさに料理されているとする。ところがいざ配膳しようとしたら、客席は日本風で懐石料理が並べられている場だった。だから厨房は場違いな皿を出せず、わらわのところへはいつまで経っても西洋料理が届かないといったか。だからそなたに日本風の客席を打ち壊し、場を一度白紙に戻させたのだ。 そのおかげでようやくわらわの注文した料理が届き、力が戻ったというところか。
I don't think that's a very good analogy, but sure it works, who cares?
もっとも、ようやく食前酒が届いたというところよ。メインディッシュにはまだまだ遠い。今のわらわなど、靴屋の妖精にも劣る希薄な存在でな。ん？何がおかしい？
魔女様の例えがあまりに面白かったもので、まさか魔法の話がお料理の話に例えられるとは思いませんでした。
我ながらうまい表現だったつもりだが、よもや笑われるとは思わなかったぞ。少し心外だ。
A slightly sulky expression rose to the witch's face. It wasn't a strange expression at all to be appearing on the face of some friends as they enjoyed their tea.
こう見えても、昔は残酷極まりないことで知られたわらわだったが、丸くなったものよ。人間とこうしてたあいない話で茶を交わせるようになるのだから。
She was probably talking to herself. As Beatrice gazed at the sea of birds tracing the horizon, she put her tea to her lips again.
雲が出てきたな。海も精彩をかけば灰色の水たまりに過ぎぬ。
そうでしょうか。曇っても海は美しくて真っ青だと思います。
Maybe the witch noticed the deeper meaning behind Shannon's words. She laughed lightly and set down her empty teacup.
もはやそなたの両目に埋められているのは黒い石ころではないらしい。どうだ？家具から人間に生まれ変わった気持ちは理解できておるか？
はい。世界がこんなにも優しかったなんて知りませんでした。
Since the start of her relationship with George, Shannon's face had grown brighter more often. Her smile had made everything go smoothly, and she had even changed her fortune. Shannon made less mistakes in her work than she had before, and the family members' opinions of her slowly started to change. Just the other day, she had been surprised when Krauss, who rarely exchanged words with her, suddenly started talking to her.
最近いい笑顔をすることが多くなったじゃないか。何か良いことでもあったのかね。
いえ、でも楽しい毎日です。はい。
良いことじゃないか。同じコーヒーなら笑顔で継がれた方がうまいに決まっている。その笑顔でもう一杯頼めんかね。
That had become a chance for Shannon to gain confidence in herself. Of course, it didn't go beyond her own heart. It wasn't something of a big change that anyone would notice. But she had begun to change bit by bit. Shannon understood it clearly. Knowing love was the same thing as gaining a soul. The same as being reborn from furniture into a human. There was absolutely nothing mistaken in Beatrice's words. By knowing love, Shannon had learned what it was to be a human.
珍しい茶化をちそうになったな。有意義な時間であった。そろそろ仕事に戻らねばならぬ時間であろう。茶会はこれまでにしよう。そなたとわらわが茶を飲むことを好かん者もおるようでな。
The witch gripped a teaspoon and flipped it with her fingers, sending it up into the air. After that, it was launched by the fingers of some invisible person and flew straight into a nearby bush. The bush shook violently and Canon came out. It seemed he had been there for some time, watching their tea party. The spoon was gripped in his hand. If he hadn't caught it, it might have hit him hard on the forehead, causing him to start oozing blood.
安心せよ。茶会はこれで終わるぞ、カノン。
いつからそこにいたの？声をかけてくれればカノン君の紅茶も入れたのに。
女同士の語らいを邪魔したくなかったのであろう。
Canon kept silent, but he seemed to be a slightly hostile look in his eyes. On the outside, he acted with respect, but unlike Shannon, Canon did not trust the witch. When Beatrice hit the table with her pipe, the tea set turned into gold butterflies and flew upwards all at once. They then scattered in every direction and the cleanup was already done.
楽しかったぞ、シャノン。また縁があれば会おうぞ。まだまだ魔力が足りぬでな。姿を現すのも疲れる。
そんなに疲れるなら二度と現れるな。
Canon had said it in a small voice, but the witch seemed to have heard it perfectly. She giggled but did not reply.
シャノン、次の茶会ではジョージとの話をまた聞かせておくれ。人の恋路より甘い茶花は他にない。それではさらばだ。
Beatrice's body had become golden butterflies, which scattered in all directions and disappeared. It was a fantastical and beautiful scene, like a blizzard of gold leaf. For a while, Shannon quietly watched the witch's exit. Canon approached her from behind and spoke with an expression that was drastically different from hers.
姉さん、あいつと付き合っちゃダメだって言ったじゃないか。
ベアトリーチェ様はそんなに悪い人じゃない。確かにちょっと怪しいところはあるけれど。
僕たちにしか姿が見えない時点で十分にうさんくさいよ。あいつは人間じゃない。何を企んでるかわかるものか。
カノン君、それは少し失礼だと思うな。
There was a touch of sternness in Shannon's voice, which was unusual for her. To Canon, who knew her well, she must have sounded extremely stern. Canon, looking excessively surprised, considering Shannon's tone, fell silent.
確かにベアトリーチェ様は人間とは違う。恐ろしい力を持っているし、恐れ敬わなければならない存在だと思う。でも人間とは違うからといってそれだけを理由に忌み嫌うのはとても失礼なことだと思うの。
姉さんの言いたいことはわかるよ。姉さんはあいつにあのブローチをもらってから変わった。まるで魔女の虜だよ。ジョージ様との仲を取り持ってもらって頭が上がらないんだ。
そんなことを言わないで。
あいつは人間じゃない。何を考えてるかわからない。だから気を許しちゃダメなんだ。そして人間じゃないのは僕らも同じだよ、姉さん。
Shannon's words grew more serious. Those words gouged at Shannon's heart. She bit her lower lip and hung her head.
僕らは家具だ。たとえ名前をもらい人として接してもらったとしても僕たちの生まれが変わるわけじゃない。
You are no longer furniture. Both the words Beatrice had given her, which had made her the happiest, floated through Shannon's mind.
家具じゃないよ。
うん、家具だよ。僕たちは人間未満の存在だよ。姉さんはそこを忘れたふりをして人間のふりをしているだけ。自分でも分かっているはずだよ。
私家具じゃないもん。 人間だもん。
いや、人間じゃない。僕らには愛する資格も愛される資格も初めからない。
Shannon's criticism seemed to have shifted away from Shannon's meetings with the witch. Shannon picked up on that pretty quickly.
お嬢様に聞いたよ。正直呆れたね。ジョージ様と一緒に旅行に出られるなんて。家具の身の程を忘れてるよ。姉さんはあの魔女にそそのかされて自分が人間になれたと勘違いしてるだけなんだよ。
聞いてカノン君、確かに私たちは家具だよ。人間味を劣った未満の存在。でもその満たない分をもし得られたなら、それは人間になれたということじゃないのかな。
そんなものありはしないよ。
あるの。それを得たなら私たちは家具なんかじゃない人間になれるよ。
バカバカしい。なれるものか。
Shannon spat those words out, but he did so weakly and turned away. He was probably giving up. After all the suffering he'd undergone during the days he'd lived as furniture, his heart was firmly sealed.
なれるよ、カノン君も。普通の人間に。
よしてよ、魔女の受け売りは。
ベアトリーチェ様に教えてもらったの。私たちは世界の一なる元素を得ることで人間になることができる。それを満たさないならそれは人間じゃない。だから人は一なる元素を得るために生涯を尽くし貫いていく。
姉さんが何を言っているのかわからないね。よまよい事なら聞きたくないよ。
ならカノン君にもわかるように教えてあげるね。
Don't you two have work to do?
ほら、姉さんの指の先を見て。
Shannon quietly pointed at the sea towards the horizon. Shannon didn't understand what she meant, and couldn't do anything except look between the horizon and Shannon's expression, which seemed to be posing a riddle.
海。カノン君は海が何色に見える？
It was an extremely simple question. For a while, Cannon tried to guess at the meaning behind it, but he couldn't think of anything, so he answered obediently.
パッとしない。ネズミ色だよ。それが何？
Objectively speaking, the sea laid out beneath a cloudy sky would have probably been best described by Cannon's words. But as Shannon closed her eyes and smiled, she shook her head slightly.
私には真っ青に見える。
そういう意味？緑色の信号を青っていうようなものでしょ。
違うの。海は真っ青。私には分かってカノン君には分からないなら、これがつまりそういうことなの。
Cannon bit his lower lip and went silent for a while.
わからないよ。
カノン君、手を出して。
As Cannon was taken aback, unable to understand what she was saying, she took his arm and opened the palm of his hand. Shannon softly set something there. It was the magic brooch which he had received from Beatrice. A magic charm shaped like a gold butterfly which could bring love to fruition.
これはあいつの。
これは私の。だから私だと思って粗末にしないで。
After being spoken to like that, he couldn't just throw it away. Cannon didn't know what he should do and stood there confused for a while, the brooch still in the palm of his hand. Shannon put the palm of her hand on top of Cannon's and the brooch was warmed by both of their hands.
これは本当の魔法の力を持ったお守り。 きっとカノン君に大切な気持ちを教えてくれると思うの。
あいつの魔法で教えられることなんて何もない。
あるの。だから身につけて、恥ずかしければ懐に忍ばせておくだけでもいいそうなの。
バカバカしい。あいつの魔法なんかに惑わされてたまるか。
Even as even as he said that, Canon couldn't become cold-hearted towards something Shannon was urging him to take. In the end, Shannon took it and agreed reluctantly, saying he'd prove that he wouldn't surrender to the witch's power. Shannon smiled and nodded back.
きっとカノン君は大切なことを学べるよ。きっと人間になれるから。そうすればきっとカノン君にもこの海が美しい青に見えるに違いない。
ネズミ色は何度見たってネズミ色さ。
違うよカノン君。そう見えるのは愛がないから。
Because of a howling wind, he hadn't been able to catch the main point of what she just said. So Shannon said it once more. The single element of the world. She spoke once more of the word where it existed, where the sea was deep blue.
きっとカノン君にも真っ青な海が見えるよ。だって
Without love, it cannot be seen.
そこにいるのは誰か。
カノンです、親方様。
It was rare for Kinzo to leave his study. However, the fact that he had didn't mean his noble research had been suspended. He may have left the study because of a change in mood, but that didn't mean the thoughts filling his head were any different from those he had while inside the study. Canon knew that no matter what the time, speaking to Kinzo when he didn't want to be spoken would always disturb his research.
天気が重いな。崩れるのか。
はい、天気予報ではいつ雨があってもおかしくないと。傘をお持ちいたしましょうか。
それには及ばん。しばらく私を放っておくがいい。息子たちに聞かれても所在は知らぬと言っておけ。私は自らの思考を巡る旅で忙しい。
かしこまりました。それでは失礼いたします。
Before Canon had finished bowing, Kinzo had already returned to his own world, having forgotten Canon's presence completely. And once again he began rambling to himself. Amidst those words, the name of that witch popped up many times.
おお、ベアトリーチェ。お前の微笑みに手が届かぬ。どうすればよみがえるのか。どうすれば再び微笑んでくれるのか。何が足りぬ。研究か資料か触媒か。それとも魔力か運気か神託か。ああ、ベアトリーチェ、どうすればお前の面影をもう一度見ることができるのだ。
As Canon listened to his master's weeping voice with his back turned, he turned around just once. When he did, right behind his isolated master was the shadow of a person who shouldn't have been there. It was the witch. At once thinking that the witch was plotting to do Kinzo some harm, Kinzo dashed back to Kinzo and tried to form a shield with his body. But when he saw the expression of the witch's face, that emotion of his vanished. After all, Beatrice's expression was of sorrowful, or maybe pitying.
愚かな金蔵、わらわはここにいるというのに見えぬのか。
Right behind Kinzo, as he repeated the the witch's name over and over, desiring to be reunited to her more than anything else, was the witch herself. And yet Kinzo didn't notice anything. When Beatrice tries to rest her hand on his shoulder, he didn't notice.
なぜだ、なぜベアトリーチェの微笑みに手が届かぬのか。月齢か、水星の周期か、惑星の配列か。何が足りぬのだ、何が。
無駄よ、金蔵。愛がなければ見えない。
Canon took the brooch he received from Shannon out of his pocket. By learning something new, would he become able to glimpse something he couldn't see now?
愛がなければ見えない。
He looked at Kinzo's back once more. The witch could no longer be seen there.